Welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. Jessica Christie here, a health and beauty enthusiast who became a medical practitioner to be the authority on how to enhance both your outer beauty and inner beauty for the most confident glow. Founding and owning a multi-million-dollar aesthetic medical practice in Michigan, my mission is to bring all the bi-coastal innovations to the fresh coast of Michigan. From which aesthetic treatment gives you the most bang for your buck to how to create systems to be both professionally fulfilled and still have freedom of time and relationships, we will be diving into it all. I want to welcome this amazing guest this week. This is actually my first guest on the Curated Beauty Podcast. This is Mr. Brad Telepo, and he is a time management coach who is near and dear to our heart because he is responsible for the interworkings of beauty culture, streamlining things, and I won't steal his show. We're going to get into all things time management. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Good. Good to see you, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And you are right now out on the East Coast, hopefully enjoying some sunshine as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day in Boston. I think it's about 65 and all the cherry blossoms are starting to come out, and maybe going to go spend an evening on the pier to watch the sunset.
So nice. I think sunsets are one of the most beautiful things and always just a good reminder that as things are shifting over, it still can be really beautiful. And I think that in terms of being a business owner, there's so much that shifts and changes, and we really get in the habit of fearing change as we are moving through life. But there's nothing like entrepreneurship to really make you lean into change and welcome maybe a new set and a new way of doing things. And I know for me, in terms of the aesthetic industry, we have been chatting about how it's so easy to grow, but there's this accidental growth with the market need and the market share being really actually yours to claim. And I think a lot about how you can be like a duck, you're swimming on the water, but your feet are going a million miles a minute under the water. I've had this huge reflective year of, wow, what am I working towards? And I have this dream job, but could it potentially be ruining other facets of my life? And you are so elemental in people and the shifting of that mindset. Can you speak a little bit about that in what you do and kind of to that whole concept of how we tend to let that happen to us?
In my experience, or at least when I started my companies, I think a lot of people start their companies as a side job, or they're trying to get something going. And eventually it gets traction. And something I learned in a business accelerator is there's two problems in business, which is not enough sales and then everything else. What happened to me was my businesses really started growing online in the internet. And then we had enough sales. Well, what happens when we start to get more and more sales, more and more information, more and more scheduling, more and more clients trying to handle an employee, more inboxes coming at us, more notes, boom, boom, boom. It just picks up pace. To me, that's when people start to get buried underneath the busyness of their business. I believe that most people started their businesses for time freedom, or at least that's why I did. And then next thing you know, it does take a few years to get it going. But once it's going, they're now even working more hours, but under more stress as well. Where's the time to do what you love with the people that you love? And I believe that your business and your job is here for that. You're not here to spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week in a box, looking at a box, staring at a computer, handling emails, managing schedules. Things get to run well without you.
Yeah.
And once those businesses get traction, it just happens time and time again. The word, I'm overwhelmed all the time.
Absolutely. And I know that, I had met you through another person who was sharing with me something that resonated with me. Like I have all these amazing creative ideas and all these great things, but by the time I go have a moment to sit down and process some of it, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And then I'm essentially procrastinating because it's just all too overwhelming.
Yeah. And you already have enough on your plate. Like, how are you managing your current workload? And if you have these new ideas, how are you even going to fit that into the bandwidth if you can't manage your current bandwidth? And it dawned on me when I was at a Tony Robbins event where he asked the 8,000 people to say, who's got a business, stand up. And about 75% of the people stood up. And he said, who here can actually be away from their business for more than 3 or 4 days without being stressed out? And barely anyone stayed up. And I'm looking around, I'm like, that sucks. They can't be away from their business without being stressed out. And he said, you don't own a business, you own a job, which is worse than owning a business.
Yeah, you have all the responsibilities of that too, which is you've just really gotten yourself into exactly what you were trying to get yourself out of. And I felt that too.
Yeah.
When I first met you and when we first kind of had a discovery call and, the concept of you sounded so good and we were kind of interviewing each other, I remember just such a simple diagram and like a web design of you can grow, but in order to grow appropriately, there's scale. And I think that concept can be really foreign to people in the medical field, specifically like myself, because we're not given a business school track. So when you think about scale, I think a lot of people have heard the term, but can you talk a little bit about why that's important? Because I think you're going there in what happens if we don't scale.
Got it. One, if you don't scale, you can't grow. That's what scaling is. But I think in order to dumb it down, what happens if you don't set up your structure to scale? So we've all had it, even something as elementary as school, college. Next thing you know, you take twice as much credits, but you don't have the bandwidth. And we're all building these beautiful skyscrapers in business and more importantly, personal life. And we're growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you don't have the structure to keep growing, aka scaling, you will implode. It's one of the top 3 reasons why people go out of business is actually getting too much business or running out of steam. And eMyth Revisited and Michael Gerber did a great job of painting that picture. Well, great, I want to run a med spa one day. Like I was just doing side internet companies. Next thing you know, one day I'm like, I play drums. I understand percussion. Music will never go away. What if I start selling that stuff online? And then it's just like, boom, 1 to 2 years later, there's just business. So how do you set up your structure so that you can grow while still having time off and the trust and the confidence, the peace of mind that things will run well without you? And every team member gets to feel that. Like going on vacation, still checking in, buried in your emails, stressed about what you're coming back to. Can you actually be away without being stressed out? Are you always worried about what things are going on? Going on maternity leave? There's a gift that you get to have an interchangeable system, not just for the owner, but it applies for everyone. It's the same system. Like you have a system for your employees where you want to give them time off. People should be able to take plenty of time off and you've got each other's backs.
Yeah.
And it should be simple.
Yes. And I think that was something that resonated so much with me. I think some reservations for people that are good leaders are going to say, well, great. I am so interested in hearing more about this time management lifestyle that's going to work well for me. But every time I read a time management book or some sort of scaling concept, like I love to read and I love to learn more about that. But there was a reservation inside of me that thought, gosh, okay, great. I am going to have this freedom, but does it come at the cost of all of the who are going to do those jobs for me? And I remember sharing that with you that, I'm creating freedoms for myself, but not for my team. And how can I implement that into my organization and stay true to some of the core values and culture of creating freedom of time, purpose, relationships, and money for everyone? And so I think that you must hear that from people. What is the important elements of having everyone on the team into this system as well?
Think of any sports team. It could be soccer, football, field hockey, hockey. What happens when people aren't on the same system? Like there's normally a lead coach and you're all trying to move from point A to point B, whatever it is. And Stephen Covey would talk about the definition of chaos, or all relationship breakdowns are from a lack of clear agreements. And if you aren't on the same page with your agreements regarding, okay, we're out of the head, we're into these tools, but these are the agreements and the routines to keep this system together. Otherwise, you're dropping the ball all over the place. People are wondering who's up to what. No one's got a clear status update. You got 5 cooks in a kitchen, people doing different ways and different things with different tools. No wonder the kitchen is a disaster. No food's coming out on time. And you just can't even get the consistent result of just can I just please have some eggs and bacon work out the same way? And that's the consistent result that you're actually looking for. So am I answering the question correctly? Like, I think I heard it's like, well, what's the importance of it? But wow, you have to have a single source of truth and agreements for how you're running even your home.
Yeah.
You got different people doing different things in different ways. You're just going to rip each other's head off.
Right. I'm thinking of like that restaurant, like you have 50 pizzas, but like no silverware, like napkins ready to go. And so, if people don't know, that's so on the leaders to be able to be setting those clear expectations and that communication. And then speaking into being fluid into your home life, I remember also sharing with you, I think so much of us as entrepreneurs love the freedom part of being able to think creatively, and we don't want to have our hands tied to anything or too much of a commitment to something. I was like, well, I don't want like my Apple Watch to go off and to say like, now it's time to take out the garbage because it's Monday at 3:00. But your answers to my fears were so obvious, but also so foreign, I think, to someone who thinks like that. Can you speak a little bit about how kind of that process of getting everything out of the head? Because I also didn't understand, like, what does it mean to be out of the head? And then what does that then equal in terms of those creative beings and the love for creativity?
Got it. Just to make sure I'm clear, what was your biggest fear? Was it you are going to be out of the head with this information and you're going to lose it all?
No, I think becoming robotic and having a schedule and a calendar of events that I couldn't be flexible from. I think that that's like a very common fear of entrepreneurs, that they don't want to be told that now they can't shift their day and do something different.
Yeah. And I've come into that resistance a lot initially because people don't want rigidity. I don't want rigidity. We're not here to be robots. And the reality is once it starts kicking in the first week, that structure isn't rigid. The structure creates the freedom. Mm-hmm. It might seem rigid when you're telling someone, I need you to do this every morning and at the end of every day and to do this once a week. If you're actually going to get to freedom, that resistance is normal, but how are you keeping this together right now? Trying to manage something from the head. How many goals and projects do you have on your list? Like hundreds, right? If I told you 10 things I need you to do right now, or someone's going to pass away tomorrow and you're going to manage it from your head, you think you're going to remember? No. And so when we get out of the head with all that we're managing, one, so much mental space frees up. Like it starts to get creative. And then that's the first structure killer. They call it like running your business from the brain. We're not going to remember 95% of this conversation. If I was like, Jessica, do this, Brad, you do this. If we weren't writing it down by the end of it, we just walked away, another meeting about who's doing what. Mm-hmm. A lack of clarity, a lack of being on the same page.
Yeah.
So in summary, it's the structure that creates the freedom. And if a great system, it's simple and it's flexible. You turn it on, you turn it off. You need to be away, you're too busy, you want to take a nap. How is it flowing with your time and mental energy in the day? But you got to be able to trust it and be able to flip it on and flip it off to say, all right, I'm now ready for you. I can engage, or I just need to stop and execute for a little while.
I think that was just an aha moment for me, that time management and working with you actually creates more of all the things that I was afraid it would take away from me.
Yeah. So based on your current workload, you got a growing company, act like your sales are staying the same. How much time, what percentage of time do you think we freed up in just under a few weeks? Like at least 25% of your time.
Yeah,
goals.
I agree. The other thing I had shared with you that was a huge realization, and you said something so great about it, was I had realized that I was maybe making unrealistic expectations of myself in terms of the time frames in which I needed to complete them. And you've shared so much with me, and you were able to really relate to me, where you have all these great ideas, but what's really important in this 2-week interval, and what are the most important priorities so that we're checking things off the list and kind of snowballing that action. Can you talk a little bit about that whole Scrum method and these sprints that you kind of have us running on now?
Yeah. And so the pain point there is we already have so much to do in 2 weeks and act like we have a focus. Okay. Then next thing you know, the morning comes. And how many new messages are you getting? How many new ideas do you want to do? how many new things that are out of the sphere of what you already dedicated to. Just think about it. Like, even if it's a 5-minute thing, you might be saying yes to 50 new 5-minute things. That's another 250 minutes. And you start diluting your time and energy towards what you already dedicated towards, right? The first question in that flow chart, remember we go through with like your 300 to 800 new inputs. Your first decision should be, does this really matter to the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Like, be discerning. And if you just take 5 seconds to think about that, and if the answer is no, you can put that sucker over into a parking lot or snooze to review for later. But it protects your current bandwidth, especially when you have very little time and mental capacity.
Absolutely.
And learning to say no, boundaries, right? Learning to say no, not now. Like, no, not now. But just saying yes when a lot of people are pulling it into their task management tools or putting it on their plate, they're just spiraling their focus and their lack of progress towards that. And in my studies of Scrum and implementation, focusing on 2 weeks, saying this is what we're doing, having a clear morning check-in. What'd you get done yesterday? What barriers and issues do you have? And what are you committed to today? The acceleration gets crazy. There's like another med spa. She like calculated. She's like, Brad, this is 1,000 to 2,000% now. We are fast and we're barely need to talk about anything. Like, what is your experience only being, a weekend, 1 to 2 weeks in of playing with it?
You know, the freedom of being able to go get a chiropractic adjustment and getting some of my supplements adjusted. It's so funny because now I'm thinking about, okay, I have this time in the car. What are things that I could be doing that are in this 2-week sprint? One of them was checking in with my husband and just having that flexible conversation. And we were talking about how incredible this has been in terms of changing our life and starting to give us that freedom of making sure that we're not losing ideas, that we have a place for them to go, and that we're actually working on things that matter for what's next. But even further than that, I remember one day you were like, man, your husband called me and he's like, I can see what's happening with her and I want more of that even in our home life. That's wild. And I think that it definitely was hard. I'm so glad that we had someone like you in terms of implementing things that were really foreign concepts to me, you know, in terms of having a task manager and a communication other than my cell phone. I'm like, I already have this and I have so many inboxes, but getting the clarity on them was important. But then also you add a whole nother element of like, a lot of people have task management systems. A lot of people have some sort of central communication, but what do you think is really like the linchpin in terms of pulling those things together? And what do you think makes you kind of different in terms of being a time coach, other than being so available, which I appreciate?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the linchpin is the routines. Everyone is always asking, give me the latest damn like tech tool. I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me again. You know, are we going to use Slack or for a task management tool? We're going to do Monday. We're going to do Asana. We're going to do Trello. How are we going to use this for a business playbook? And this is something that was trained into me as I was training other people was your solution is not technological. People, I'm telling you right now, your latest Asana is not going to save you. Your Monday's not going to save you. Your Slack's not going to save you. How you're going to manage your latest updates, your emails, it's not going to save you. If the tech was going to save you, it already would have. Your solution is behavioral. You must be completely out of the head into a simple tool set. The tech stack's easy. It's so easy a 12-year-old can learn it. Yeah. But you have to have your clear agreements and know exactly what to do and how often so that your system is leak-proof. You get that dialed in, you free up the time, the mental energy, and the trust and the confidence that it's all handled, then it's a whole new world. So that linchpin is built into the agreements and the routines of what to do and how often and how to check it. That is the linchpin.
No, I think that that's so valuable. You've talked about where do you go for it? Like there's a playbook. And I think that it's so valuable to think about, oh my gosh, if you're playing a board game, my daughter pulled out Monopoly yesterday and she's 5. And I was like, although she was playing it her own way. And she's like, no, this is how we're playing it. And I was like, that's fine. You're 5. But I'm like, but don't you want to know the real rules? And I was having my husband and I were reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, how we can pick this up, this game that we were taught when we were, maybe 10. There's a playbook. There's literally an instruction list that shows you how to walk through it. And I think something that we're building that's unique to us with your help is our playbook so that anyone can potentially come in and talk about scaling. You can really onboard whatever employees you want without this massive investment from your team. That's a barrier. I hear a lot in my industry. A lot of people say, well, when do I hire someone and do I have the time to train them right now? Well, if we had this whole playbook and these resources in this library that you're helping us build, you can really onboard someone so quickly and really shift that feeling. And that's great. That's invaluable. You do the work one time and it's done.
Yeah. You're already doing the work one time anyhow. And imagine for any role in your company, all of a sudden you could hire me, plug me in, show me on one piece of paper within 60 seconds. Here's your role. Here's what you need to do and how often. And then it starts to link off into the how-tos. It will reduce your time and energy to train someone by 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
But that playbook is another tool. Like there's the task management tool in the playbook. 100% of the time out of all my years of screening people, about half have a task management tool, but all don't have agreements and routines to keep it together. No one has the business playbook, which once we installed that in my prior companies, ranked in the top productivity by employee, time in office went down 80, 90%, team had unlimited time off requests, moved to another state, ran 2 different companies, hit a sales growth record. Like freedom occurred to reinvest into what really mattered. And one thing I wanted to chime in regarding the tools, remember one of your employees, hey, I have Slack PTSD. Of course you do, because you didn't have clear agreements or routines on how to keep it together. How many Asanas have I cleaned up? Asana doesn't work. No. Give me 1 to 2 hours. Asana owns you. You don't own Asana. Do you own Slack or does Asana own you? Do you own your inboxes or does it own you? Do you own your company or does it own you? It's all a relative scale.
Yeah.
And every time you're in hell, lack of clear agreements and routines to keep it together, and you just haven't onboarded it correctly.
Absolutely. That is so true. I mean, you probably come in contact with so many different people who are dealing with those sorts of feelings or preconceived notions. And it's not just some virgin territory where you get to implement this novel concept. Like there's definitely preconceived notions. What are the barriers that you identify with most teams, and how do you implement a strategy with the owner to really help buy in? I mean, I know for me, the coaching part was huge. Can you speak to that in terms of helping an owner that's maybe like looking to bring something like this in, but they're thinking about other employees that are going to really not be happy with the initial concept? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it comes up all of the time, and you get the owner bought in because it's actually working. Like you get the owner bought in, or 2 people or 4, and it's actually working. Well, how many times have you had it out there to where out comes this new thing that they're rolling out, they try it, it gets working, and next thing you know, it doesn't get implemented. Such a huge waste of time. People are frustrated AF. Why? Because they just went through change again. It's super annoying. And then it didn't stick. So you just went down this path where you spent a lot of money, a lot of frustration. You try to deal with change, and then everyone's just back to it being frustrating again. In order to get team buy-in, this has just been my experience. What did I do? Send your team 3 different videos just to get the conversation going. I send them 3 to 4 different videos to make it Sesame Street on what systems actually are. And then you have to get the conversation going, because if you tell it and don't sell it, you have no chance. If you just come in and you're like, we're doing this tomorrow, you don't have a prayer. It won't work. You have to create the conversation. In the first meeting, everything is, what are you noticing? What are your takeaways? How does this relate to your job and what's happening? And next thing you know, the whole room is in a popcorn, in a healthy popcorn. This is what's coming up. This is going on. People are taking notes. And then great, we're clear on their why. Why do they want this? Everyone wants more money with more time off, with total peace of mind and trust and confidence. And to be present while they're with their husband, themselves, on vacation, with the dog, with the family. Like the gift that I always hear, it's not the 25 to 50% in time and cost savings. It's
things you do during that time too.
Yeah, like holy crap, like I'm free and I can be present. Like when you went to the game last week and you can go do these things with Will, because your most precious gift, I believe, in this earth is 1, your time, and then your present. And you cannot be present if you aren't out of your head into a system that you trust.
Yeah.
You just can't.
And I think so often I just had someone that reached out to me and was like, gosh, this system sounds really interesting. I want to know more about it. Because a lot of times in our industry specifically, this actual practitioner is not in our industry, but in our industry, we have a lot of females that are childbearing ages and they want to have a family and they think that one of the things has to go or they have to pick and choose. And it's really beautiful to be able to build not only a system that allows them to do things on their own time frame, but also one where we can celebrate everyone's life happenings without thinking, oh my gosh, that person's going off on maternity leave or there's 3 babies coming this year. How are we going to sustain as a business? And that truly is not the practitioner's problem. It's a business owner thing of how am I setting up my business to both celebrate and support the home happenings and also the professional wins as well. And so I love that this is a system that also focuses on wins. And you've really opened my eyes to being able to not only measure our company's KPIs, but also welcoming the emotional KPI indicators. And if you want to speak on that a little bit, I think people don't quit jobs because they don't like the tasks or that they're not good at the job. I think they quit jobs for more emotional reasons. And if you're not checking in, you see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll use a business example and a personal example. So my friend Becky was in town last week and she was talking with her mentor. Well, they both quit their other jobs for half the salary of what they're doing now. And they are in love with this company. They are in love with the autonomy. They're in love with the support. They didn't even know cultures like this existed where people are there to help you grow in the business as well as out of the business. And it's not just your financial KPIs that matter, it's your emotional. And we've all had it where finances are great, but emotions are down, or like emotions are up, but finances are down. But when you get both that are down and you're barely making money or you're losing money, or you're just, the emotions aren't a return, then people just start checking out. So great emotional KPIs are this. It's simply what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. We all know that. So financial KPIs, sales, productivity, sales divided by employee hours, emotional KPIs. The first check-in when we should come in every week on a scale from 1 to 10, how's your job? How's your family life? How's your personal life? It's like checking in with your partner. So remember when we launched the meeting last week on the first team meeting, I had to be really vulnerable. Like I'm going into a big client. They're paying me well. I got you and your team leads on there. And I just got to let everyone know on a scale from 1 to 10 personally, I'm a 1. I'm dealing with the relationship exit that I really miss and love. I haven't slept, but it gave them, like I felt so supported in that moment. And I'm like, great, I got room to breathe. Or you got someone checking in who's a 4. You can ask that teammate, do you want to talk about it? Mm-hmm. How can I support you today? My mental bandwidth is super low. So if you're going to be happy, what are those KPIs? Did I check in with my husband or my partner? Did I check in with my godson? How am I feeling? You're on this earth to have a great time. So what are those emotional KPIs? And everything's a scale from 1 to 10. Nothing's perfect. Life is crazy. Something's going to happen tomorrow or just things shift up and down. But wow, to speak into that and to give it a rating of 1 to 10 and what's working, what's not working, so that you're not dealing with that stupid job review a year later when it's 51 weeks too late anyhow, and it's a surprise and everyone's walking in anxious AF. You're just like, can't you just tell me like last week? Like, I think that was a breaking point in like my other relationship. It was like, what are my learning lessons here? Like, what are my learning lessons? I'm like, oh my gosh, we weren't checking in and being honest on how we were thinking and feeling. Yeah. And that's not fair. Yeah. That is not fair to people we love and businesses we love.
And I think high performing people, we think, okay, you can get to the emotion part when you've checked all the other boxes. But I think that it's actually just so strong to recognize that if you don't have those types of check-ins, that really, what do we have? I really appreciate that huge takeaway so early on in the game with working with you, because I think that it will help me shape my team and be a better leader and create that space for people to feel more fulfilled. I am so appreciative of this whole
and notice that two-way street, because I believe that most entrepreneurs and business owners, they just want to watch everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. And it gives you a real check-in, not a subjective, not a I'm feeling this way. It's two-way street. The owner's getting evaluated and the employee's getting evaluated. So like if I think my relationship is an 8 and she says it's a 2, it's a 2.
Yeah.
It's a 2. And then the owner can get checked in and be like, hey, just how is our relationship on a scale from 1 to 10? It's a 5-second answer. Yeah. Great. What's in the way? Then you got to go be weird human beings. We start to get intimate. And I think I was watching the therapist talk about, once you get intimate, things get crazy. Who knows what's going to happen? We're weird humans, but we'll figure it out. And we just got to sit down and talk it through.
Absolutely. I want everyone to know, working with a time management coach, I think that a lot of what I've started to do is bring in these people that aren't necessarily intricately involved in my business permanently, but teach us some really valuable skills. And I think that is something that I'll continue to do. I have a business coach in general. I now have you, thank goodness. I think whenever you don't know how to do something, you just think, okay, could I type this into Google, or who could I find to ask how to do this? And being that it's such a foreign concept for people to implement all of these systems, how would someone be able to find out more, or get in touch with you and kind of ping you and find out more about how to get a discovery call or start vetting each other in terms of working with you on the same concept that I've been working with you with?
Thanks. That's perfect. Well, my name is Brad, B-R-A-D, and the last name is Telepo, T as in Tom, E-L-E, P as in Paul, O, a very unique name. You can find me on LinkedIn and message me there, or Brad Telepo, T-E-L-E-P-O, @gmail.com, and we can set up a discovery call right there. And even if I'm not your solution, normally in under 15 minutes, I can evaluate everything and find out the pain points. I am aligned with 50 to 100 other efficiency and productivity consultants on different levels in different industries. I will connect you with them. All I care about is, what are your pain points? How do we save 25 to 50% of your time and all the overwhelm, and how you're managing it so you can do a lot more of what you love with the people that you love with that presence. That's what it's here for. And it's applicable to your personal life. Business isn't just busy. Personal life, health, fitness, relationships, tribe, fun and adventure. You own a home. You have a car. There are 5 to 10 major categories that you are in charge. You're the CEO of your life in, and it applies to that as well, so that you can balance it all.
Yes. And what a good reminder. We sure forget that we are in charge of our life and that it's really, truly happening for us. Well, I'm so grateful for you being here today. And I am definitely thinking that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be typing in that Google address and trying to find you. So I will definitely also help put some stuff in the show notes to create a connection with Brad. And I'm always here via Instagram or any of our other social media platforms to be able to connect to you guys as well. I am so grateful for you. And I hope that you get a beautiful sunset tonight on the pier, because you sure deserve it.
Thanks, Jessica.
Congratulations, you have done it. You've reached the end of an episode on the Curated Beauty Podcast and have enriched a part of your self-care by discovering something new. I hope this time together added a little perspective to your day and will ultimately boost your confidence and give you the strength to do all the hard things. As we walk through this journey together, follow our Curated Beauty Podcast. And if this resonated with you, share it with a friend, save the episode, and also follow our social media platforms in the show notes. We love to engage with our listeners on all levels.